For years, we've been told that the cloud is always cheaper, faster, and infinitely more scalable. I mean, it was the absolute, unquestioned gold standard for building a tech company. Yet, incredibly, some highly successful startups are actively pulling their workloads out of the cloud and moving back to their own data centers. So why exactly is this happening? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the fascinating infrastructure shift that is fracturing the default cloud-first mindset across the tech industry. Okay, let's just dive right into this surprising reality. We really need to challenge these default assumptions, because what works for a company on day one might actually become their biggest bottleneck on day 1000.
Here's our roadmap for This Explainer. We'll kick things off with the public cloud paradox, look at the hidden cost trap, walk through some real-world repatriation success stories, explore the hybrid cloud evolution, and then wrap up with some key lessons for startups. Let's get to it.
Part 1. The public cloud paradox, from startup agility to enterprise scale. Look, let's be clear up front, the cloud's success story is incredibly real. When you're a startup desperately trying to find product market fit, the cloud is basically a miracle. You get insanely fast deployment, zero upfront hardware investment, global availability, and fully managed services. It allows your team to just iterate rapidly and launch products faster than ever before. You don't need to worry about racking servers or cooling data centers. You just swipe a credit card and boom, you have infinite computing power at your fingertips. That agility, it's absolutely priceless in the early days.
Part 2. The hidden cost trap, when the math flips.
But here's where the paradox emerges. As companies scale up, the exact same flexibility that accelerated their early growth actually starts to cripple their budgets. Your infrastructure needs change as you mature. What ends up happening is that those predictable, always-on workloads become incredibly expensive to run in a pay-as-you-go model. Suddenly, startups are staring down rapid, totally unpredictable growth in their cloud spending. Compute costs increase, storage costs just completely balloon out of control, and worst of all, they get hit with these punishing data transfer and egress fees. Think about it. If you have a database server that runs 24/7, you're paying a premium rate for elasticity that you literally aren't even using. Now, check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. Gartner reports that up to 15% of total cloud spend goes purely to egress charges. In case you're not familiar, egress is just the cost of moving your own data out of the cloud. It acts as this massive hidden tax on scale. As your daily traffic goes up, your costs grow right alongside it. And this takes so many expert IT professionals completely by surprise because it's notoriously difficult to forecast. To put that into perspective, just look at this staggering price difference. Traditional hyperscalers like AWS charge roughly 9 cents in euros for every gigabyte of data egress. Meanwhile, alternative fixed-cost infrastructure providers like Danu Data charge around 8 cents per terabyte. Gigabytes versus terabytes. When you're serving up petabytes of data to your users, that price gap isn't just some minor inefficiency, It becomes a structural threat to your company's entire unit economics. The best way to think about this is renting versus buying. The cloud is like renting a really nice apartment. It's perfect for maximum flexibility when you've got highly variable traffic and unpredictable growth. But once your workloads stabilize, once you have steady, always-on services where you can forecast your traffic with, say, 80% accuracy, that elastic pricing advantage just evaporates. At that stage, repatriation is like buying a house. Yes, you have an upfront investment, but it is massively cheaper over a 5 to 7 year timeline.
Part 3. Real-world repatriation success, the Basecamp and Dropbox case studies.
So let's see how this actually plays out in the real world with companies that decided to run the math honestly. A textbook example here is 37 Signals, the company behind Basecamp and Hey. They were dropping $3.2 million a year on AWS. And look, they played the FinOps game perfectly. They tagged resources, turned on savings plans, aggressively killed unused capacity, but the bill was still just way too high. Their co-owner, David Heinemeier Hansen, summed it up perfectly. He said, "We spent 3 years optimizing this, and it's still not right, just cold arithmetic." They realized that renting simply didn't make economic sense anymore for their predictable workloads. And the reward for making the jump? Absolutely massive. By purchasing about $700,000 worth of Dell servers and moving them into managed co-location facilities, 30 Signals calculated a savings of $10 million over 5 years. Let that sink in for a second. That initial $700,000 hardware investment paid for itself from just 6 months of cloud savings.
Crazy, right?
But here's the kicker. Leaving the cloud wasn't just a financial hack. It actually boosted their application performance. By moving to dedicated single-tenant servers, Basecamp's median request times dropped from 67 milliseconds in the cloud down to just 19 milliseconds on their own hardware.
So it wasn't just cheaper, it was fundamentally simpler and noticeably faster for their users.
And they definitely aren't the only ones doing this. Dropbox had this exact same revelation back in 2015. They moved off AWS S3 and onto custom-built infrastructure that was tuned precisely to their predictable needs. The result? They saved nearly $75 million over just 2 years. What both 37 Signals and Dropbox share isn't just massive scale, it's clarity. They intimately knew their workload patterns, their storage footprints, and exactly where every dollar was going.
Part 4, the hybrid cloud evolution, nuance in infrastructure. Now, before you go and furiously cancel all your cloud accounts, hold on a second. Leaving the cloud entirely is not the right answer for everyone. Modern infrastructure is highly nuanced. The crucial takeaway here is that leaving the cloud isn't a failure, and it's not some weird technological regression. Cloud repatriation is actually a sign of operational maturity. It means you've reached a point where you understand your business deeply enough to optimize for workload predictability. So instead of this rigid, all-or-nothing approach, what we're really seeing is the rise of a blended hybrid strategy. In fact, according to IBM, 77% of companies worldwide now use a mix of public cloud, private infrastructure, edge computing, and colocation facilities. They strategically use the public cloud for those unpredictable, burstable workloads, and they use private hardware for their heavy, steady, always-on data. Best of both worlds. Deciding where to place your infrastructure really comes down to a few core factors. Are your workloads predictable? What's your operating scale? But perhaps the biggest question of all, does your internal team actually have the expertise to manage physical hardware? Look, if your engineers have only ever clicked around in an AWS or Azure console, jumping straight to bare metal is a huge operational risk. You really have to weigh your team's maturity honestly.
Part 5, Key Lessons for Startups, Building a Sustainable IT Framework. All right, let's wrap this explainer up by synthesizing this into a practical playbook you can actually use. First, measure your costs continuously. Do not ignore the hidden fees like data egress. Second, design for efficiency from day one. Third, avoid proprietary complexity that locks you into a single vendor. Fourth, deeply understand your workload patterns. Know exactly what is elastic and what is steady. And fifth, build with flexibility. You should really only be paying that premium price for cloud elasticity if your workloads genuinely require it. Ultimately, the cloud is an incredible tool, but that's all it is, a tool. It isn't a religion. You've got to challenge those default assumptions. The question is no longer whether the cloud is inherently good or bad. The real question you should be asking yourself is, which environment delivers the best balance of agility, performance, and cost for your business today? I hope this explainer gave you some fresh perspective to go run the math for yourself. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep asking the hard questions.